So, okay, yes, of course, what was happening was, what happened after that? I mean, the people in the world were brought into a very unequal form of racial domination based on superior economic means, and they spent most of the 20th century fighting for their own independent relationship to world society, which is, you know, where the great movements of liberation came from. And they were at their height in the middle of the 20th century when I was growing up. Okay, so I mean development in all those ways. I mean, you take your pick, but what I want you to take from my analysis is that these notions, these definitions are anchored in particular historical circumstances that may be of variable significance to us now. None of them have any particular a priori value. Now the second part of my talk, I want to talk about Cambridge, what I think Cambridge is. And I want to start by talking about the history of Cambridge's social structure. I mean, in other words, I want to go back 800 years. Who were these people? They were monks who escaped from Oxford because they were fed up with what they thought had become a kind of establishment toadyism. Oxford was founded in this new spirit of universal knowledge, but some people felt that it didn't take very long for that to be squashed and people to start serving establishment interests in ways that undermined the aspiration of the foundation. And so some of them came, they actually were just outside the window here, between St. John's and Magdalen, next to the river. In fact, St. John's, the name St. John's comes from the name of their foundation. So they set themselves here, and then some of them broke away to establish what became ultimately Peterhouse, and which is now recognized as the first college in Cambridge. Now what this, I think it's very important to understand this kind of original cultural recipe, if you like, for the foundation of Cambridge. What people wanted to do, like the Jesuits and others, was to discover the unity of God's plan for the world. That meant embracing universal knowledge in a new way and abandoning restrictive and narrow versions of understanding. And so the fundamental commitment is to break with unequal and established society with the aim of generating intellectual freedom that would allow us to make a new connection to the universal, of course, being identified with God at the time. This became the method through which Cambridge colleges expanded. Every new college was founded by a fraction of people who felt that the university had fallen back onto old ways, and they wanted to establish a new connection with the universal. So, for example, in St. John's, you had followers of the mother of Henry Tudor, Henry VII, who were mainly rural notaries, notables, who, apart from founding St. John's, founded Shrewsbury School, Manchester Grammar School, and various others. And their basic aim, clearly, was to found a college in which bright boys from the provinces would have a chance to break in. That was their recipe. There are other, I mean, the Puritan divines of the 17th century, the bishops and John Harvard and so on, who founded Emmanuel, had a different conception of what they were aiming to do. And all these colleges, when they were established, were all basically trying to renew what they saw as the highest mission of the university in their own particular way, coming from where they came from. And in the face of what was always the case, that Cambridge and Oxford and other institutions like them always contain a vast majority of establishment deadheads. I mean, you know, the function of the university is so easily diverted to the maintenance of inequality. And it's so much easier to pursue a career path which is based on doing what is required. And so I would argue that there is a kind of permanent tension in Cambridge, which is no greater or lesser now than it ever was before, which was that it's like Pareto's 80-20 rule. I mean, basically 80 people and 80% deadheads, 20% maybe doing something. And and you know, for example, in 1900, if you looked at Cambridge, I mean, the two big issues were what to do about the women and whether the dons should be priests or not. And in fact, there were these hooray Henrys tearing down the gates of Newnham in protest against the admission of women into the university. There was vast and endless angels on a pinhead type conversation about whether, you know, you could be a Cambridge don without being a paid-up practitioner in the Church of England. All of this kind of stuff. I mean, if you were doing a social history of the place, that's all you would see. I mean, just deadheads. What you wouldn't see is that Cambridge, at that time, was making modern physics. I mean, the Cavendish laboratory had just been established by James Clerk Maxwell. Darwin's son Horace was making the machines to make the experiments work. Two northern lads, Adam Sedgwick and William Whewell, established the world's first natural science tripos. All of this thing was going on in the cracks, as Kate said, against the background in which most people coming to Cambridge were basically a waste of space. All right. The second aspect of the social structure that I want to emphasize, and this has turned out to me to be by far the most thrilling and supportive aspect of the institutional structure of Cambridge, is that it has no pronounced central hierarchy. I've taught in 12 or 14 universities around the world, 4 continents, and I can tell you that this is the only place that I've ever been in which the president doesn't rule the show. And the reason the president doesn't rule the show is because there are 3 distinct institutional spheres. There are the departments, there are the colleges, and then there are the specialist centres for like the African Studies Centre or whatever. And what this means is that Cambridge has always been a network society. It's not, I mean, if you come here, it's no good trying to find a social structure to adapt to, because it isn't there. You have to make your own society here. I mean, one of the reasons why Cambridge has produced more than half of the best actors in Britain since the Second World War is because the plurality of theatrical possibilities in Cambridge means that all these people had to become their own entrepreneur in order to get in the ADC or the Footlights or Queen's or whoever. In other words, there is a particular style of intellectual entrepreneurship that flourishes when the social structure is too decentralized to offer a fixed pattern for adaptation. So, in my view, this remains, but it's a precarious situation, Cambridge's greatest strength. And it's one of the reasons why, I mean, half the biggest ideas since Jesus Christ came out of Cambridge. You know, Charles Babbage, Darwin, Keynes, Rutherford, Maxwell, Newton, give him a plug. So you know, I mean, why? Well, I keep asking myself, why? Why are these people changing the world? DNA, I didn't even mention DNA, Crick Watson.